Grand Rising. Letting everything warm up, giving everybody a chance to come out. Get picked up by the cab this rising. Another 5 minutes. Stories from yesterday loading up. We'll be ready to take off. Grand Rising GMH.
Grand Rising. Hold on, put my headphones on.
All right.
All right, Grand Rising, no sellout.
Grand Rising, no sellout. Peace, peace.
Peace, y'all. Grand Rising.
Pulling up the markers from yesterday where we left off at.
All right.
I think I stayed up all night. I done mastered Zoom and OBS together.
Uh-oh.
I was finna test it. I said, no, I'll save it for the tomorrow Rising show.
Okay.
Let me put this in. And I'm gonna put it back in this back chat too.
Man, I keep forgetting to open the back chat.
Don't worry, I do the same thing.
I'm gonna blame those sellouts.
Man, for what? What happened? What I missed? I
I
missed
fell
that too.
asleep with my notebook in my lap.
Yeah, man, it was dead serious. The nap, I guess, was more serious because my wife saw your message, TMH, and tried to wake me up, asked if I was available for a Section 3 meeting. I said no, and I know damn well I was I was not trying to say no, but my mind at that moment said, "Fuck you."
No.
Exactly. Man, I was like, wait a minute.
You know that's how normally how it go.
Yeah. What, are we live right now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So what the moral of the story was, no salad, go to sleep, stop trying to get it in sections. No, let me stop. You like that, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm posting this morning's story in his back chat. So if y'all don't have it pulled up, you don't have to get it from no place else.
Thank you very much.
It's back there now.
There it is.
Yeah, 2 more minutes. We'll take off at 8:15.
So is this us taxiing down the runway?
I guess what? That's one of the worst part of a flight, though. American Indian Wars.
Yeah, we stopped at what the beginning of the 18th century, I think it was. Yeah.
We're just about to get good.
It's gonna get ugly.
We finna see some stuff.
Mm-hmm. I advise hard hat, hammers, shovels, pen and paper. These dates, yesterday's dates was crazy. These dates are really crazy.
The pen and paper is important.
About to get stupid.
Or your bookmarks if you got them on your phone. You might as well just bookmark it. Highlight and bookmark. Screenshot. Take your notes. Take your notes to 2019 way if you need to. It's all right.
Mm-hmm.
Do whatever. If you got a note, take notes.
Take it. All right, send these last links out and we can start.
I don't think I got a notification again. I mean,
yeah, that's why I send the links out. I know. I ain't get one on my other phone.
Yeah, I'm about to. Yeah, matter of fact, that's how I can
They just
check.
don't like us no more.
Yeah, something's. Let's see. I got shared.
You don't need
You
no
got that
stinking
you're live.
notification.
Oh no, I got one. I got one on my other phone. It says 11 minutes ago. Is that correct? We've been on 11 minutes.
15 minutes.
Okay, so this is a late. That was late.
4 minutes late.
Look, 13 minutes ago, I got the Gmail for the Hangout.
You see how far behind it is?
It's ridiculous. Look, and you see how far behind. Oh, my bad. That's loud. You see how far behind I am when I be showing. Like, where is that link? I be hitting refresh and everything. It's like not working. Not working at all this morning. But yeah, no, that worked. Okay, at least I got it. I definitely got a notification.
Grand Rising, Chief Oyeminia.
There we go.
In the chat. Yeah, talking with TMH last night. I hooked up the other two screens, so.
Grand Rising, whoa, yeah. So Lisa know your mind, huh?
Grand Rising.
Peace, Brittany. I ain't gonna say peace. In back chat.
You don't need to tell her no peace. No, let me stop.
Hey, she was the first one in the chat. No, I ain't gonna say that.
I think that's by default, though.
She was the first one to know the live button was being hit. That's what it was. Or she was the second person to know the button was being hit.
And I think that's default.
Hmm.
Grand Rising, everyone. Grand Rising.
Grand
Jay
Rising J
Susquehanna.
Susquehanna.
If you don't know, this is the C.A.B show, calling Aboriginal bloodlines. And we'll be continuing from where we left off yesterday with the American Indian Wars. We stopped at right after King William's War, ending the 16th, 17th century. Now we're going into the 17th, 18th century. We're gonna get deep.
Bring your hard hats.
Hmm.
Bring your porta potties.
Mm-hmm. This is
Bring
not
your
for the
caution
weak
tape.
hearted. Grand Rising J. Susquehanna. Okay, last ones now. Sending these last ones out now.
For a second, he got quiet. I'm like, uh-oh, it's time to go.
Oh, the list grown. At one time, it was nothing to come on here send invites to everybody. Now it takes like 15 minutes because they don't want the notifications working right. Grand Rising LJ Free. Okay, let's start. First war at the top of the 18th century is Queen Anne's War, and that's from 1702 to 1713. It says the combatants in that is France, New France, Spain, New Spain, the Wabanaki Confederacy, was this the Kahuanaga Mohawk, Choctaw, Timuchu, Apache, and Natchez are combatants number one. Combatants number two in this war was England until 1707, English America, Great Britain from 1707, British America, the Muskogee Creek, the Chickasaw, and the Umasi. So what y'all think about that one now?
Okay, so we got France, New France, Spain, New Spain,
Mm-hmm.
Wabanaki Confederacy, Caughnawaga, Mohawk, Choctaw, Timucua, Appalachia, and the Natchez in one corner. Second
Mm-hmm.
corner, we got England, English America, and then Great Britain. So basically, this is where England has, right after England has merged with
It
Scotland, it
became
became
Great
Great
Britain in
Britain.
707, yeah.
You got British America, which is basically the colonies,
Mm-hmm.
and their Indian allies are the Muskogee Creek, Chickasaw, and the Yamasee. Now we're seeing Indians in the 1700s that we hadn't seen in the 15 and 1600s.
Yep.
So I guess we're
Moving.
gonna have to start at the beginning with the Queen Anne's War and find out what this war was about, or at least where it is.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully everybody got your hard hats on, because we can't, it's never linear. We always got to go wide before we can go straight. So I'll go ahead and start reading if you don't mind.
All right.
Queen Anne's War from 1702 to 1713 was the second in a series of French and Indian wars fought in England's 13 American colonies. In Europe, it is viewed as the North American theater of the War of the Spanish Succession. Well, I just got proven wrong. Remember when we talked about theaters?
Yep.
And I said the only time I ever heard of it being talked about theaters was the Civil War. Well, here we go. Talk about theater. So
Oh
does that
boy.
mean this? Look, so does that mean this war didn't happen? I'm just saying. It was fought between France and England, plus England's colonial forces, for control of the American continent, while the War of the Spanish Succession was primarily fought in Europe. Whoa!
The Spanish succeed. Ooh.
So was Spanish seceding from? I guess we have to find it out. The war also involved numerous American Indian tribes allied with each nation, and Spain was allied with Spain was allied with France. Hmm.
Yep.
It is also known as the Third Indian War, or in France as the Second Intercolonial War. It was fought on three fronts. Whoa, so this is a big war. Because normally only try to fight a war on one front. At the most, fight on two fronts.
Mm-hmm.
So this war is going to be fought on three fronts. Front number one, Spanish Florida and the English province of Carolina attacked one another, and the English forces engaged the French based in Mobile, Alabama. Remember the Mobile?
Yep.
In a proxy war involving Allied Indians on both sides. The Southern War did not result in significant territorial change, but it had the effect of nearly wiping out the Indian population of Spanish Florida, including parts of northern Georgia, and destroying the network of Spanish missions in Florida. That don't even sound right.
Mm-mm.
Number two,
Every bit of wrong. Every bit of wrong. That sound.
I know, right? Number two, that's the second front. The English colonies of New England fought against French and Indian forces based in Acadia and Canada. Quebec City was repeatedly targeted by British expeditions, and the Acadia capital, Port Royal, was taken in 1710. The French and Wabanaki Confederacy fought to thwart New England expansion into Acadia, whose border New France defined as Kennebec River in southern Maine. Toward this end, they executed raids against targets in province of Massachusetts Bay, including Maine, most famously the raid on Deerfield in 1704. So just from these two fronts, you're talking from Canada to Florida. Am I looking at this right?
That's what it sounds like so far. Unless we both
Yeah,
death is rising.
right. From Canada to Florida.
Mm-hmm. A whole lot of.
That's the length of what we know now known as the United States. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Front number three. The English colonists based at St. John's, Newfoundland, and Labrador disputed control of the island with the French based at Plaisance. Most of the conflict consisted of economically destructive raids on settlements. The French successfully captured St. John's in 1709, but the British quickly reoccupied it after the French abandoned it. Then there's the Treaty of Utrecht. It ended the war in 1713, following a preliminary peace in 1712. France ceded the territories of Hudson Bay, Acadia, and Newfoundland to Britain while retaining Cape Breton Island and other islands in the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Some terms were ambiguous in the treaty, and concerns of various Indian tribes were not included, thereby setting the stage for future conflicts. So it sounds like while the European colonies were getting straight, they weren't really concerned, according to this, about the needs and the wants of their fellow combatants, the Indians, which resulted in future conflicts.
That's what it's sounding like.
So, man, where do we start? You're basically talking about a war that was from Canada to
To
Florida.
Florida, the whole East Coast.
Come on, man.
But then it would make sense how, remember how we said before that you had so many other people here? And will Britain end up settling as the 13 colonies? There were people there already. So them people had to be fighting and stuff for Britain to even think about coming there.
Okay.
Wow. Dynamite, please.
Already, already, we just getting started. We got a war on the whole coast,
Whole East Coast.
from north to south, with the F's or the PH, no T's, no TH. Okay, so wow.
We just getting started. Second war really gonna make you be like, hold on. Because this war is going on from 1702. Remember these dates, 1702 to 1713.
That's 11 years if my math serves me correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. This war was fought on three fronts. That's a huge war.
Yep.
Okay, so where do we start with discussing? Because, okay.
I know. Like, okay, how we gonna tackle this one?
How we gonna eat this out of it? Okay. Let's go back. Um, so let's look at we already know the European combatants. France, New France, basically. Then you had Spain and Great Britain. So let's look at the Wabanaki Confederacy. Who did the Wabanaki Confederacy consist of? I'm gonna go ahead and put this link in the back chat.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna put it out there. Putting it in the chat so anyone who wants to store it or read along with it or go through it as we go through it, it's just in the chat.
We're
Bingo.
gonna need some. We gonna need some help with this one. Okay. The Wabanaki Confederacy, translated roughly as "people of the first light" or "people of the dawn land," are a First Nations and Native American confederation of five principal nations: the Mi'kmaq, Malisat, Passamaquoddy, Abenaki, and Penobscot. Okay, only tribe I heard of was the Mi'kmaq out of this tribe.
You notice what I noticing too
What's that?
is that a lot of these confederacies are popping up. Could it be they pushing these? It look like they're pushing these smaller bands of Indians around. When I mean pushing them around, they're making allegiances with other groups now. Cause I'm like you, I'm starting to see names I ain't never see.
So let's who are the Mi'kmaq? Let's, let's look at them. If anybody has clicked on the link that basically talks about the Wabanaki Confederacy, all I'm doing is just clicking on the principal nation. So Mi'kmaq.
Yeah, I'm gonna put that one in there too. So people, just in case people are mobile and can't click it, putting the link to the
Take
Micmac in there now.
take a look at their flag, or take a look at this is their flag. You see it?
I just posted that one in the chat.
It says Grand Council
Wow,
flag of the Mi'kmaq Nation. Although the flag is meant to be displayed hanging vertically as shown here, it is quite commonly flown horizontally with the star near the upper hoist.
I done seen this before. Isn't it funny that they have this? Oh my goodness,
Okay.
they got this crescent moon and star flag.
And it got a cross.
But remember what they said: if you turn it sideways
Mm-hmm.
and you put the moon with a star at, don't this flag look familiar now?
It's like, what?
Turn it sideways and
Oh,
put the star and the moon in the same square.
Jay says the Moorish flag.
That's what I'm talking about. Turn it sideways. Don't this flag look familiar if you turn it sideways?
Come on,
That's why I
JC.
said it. I'm like, wow. You see the religious symbols when you turn it side. I'm sorry, y'all. Is
Man, we
everything was just
just
a
got
play off a
started.
play off of a play off of a play?
Man, I can't even get my breakfast yet. They starting with the okie doke. Come on, man. Come on, stop playing. Okay. All right. Okay. They are the first nation of people indigenous to Canada's Atlantic provinces and the Gasate Peninsula of Quebec, as well as the northeastern region of Maine. They call their national territory Mi'kmaq. The nation was a population of about 170,000, including 18,044 members in the recently formed Kalipu First Nation in Newfoundland, of whom nearly 11,000 speak Mi'kmaq and Eastern Algonquin language. Algonquin must have been a base language for the tribes.
Yeah, it
I'm
would
just
have to
saying.
be at the rate that all these people are speaking it.
Yeah. Once written in Mi'kmaq hieroglyphic writing. Oh, now they got Mi'kmaq hieroglyphics. Okay, great. It is now written using most letters of the Latin. Whoa. Once written
So,
in Mi'kmaq hieroglyphic writing, it is now written using most letters of the Latin alphabet. So now we
Micmac
see
is the
where
precursor to Latin.
we were just talking about that yesterday.
Yep.
Jay said we're being played. LJC said
Yeah.
this feels like the movie Inception. He said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come out and say, we got punked. Don't play me.
Majorly.
So we have a Moorish flag.
Yeah, I put it up on the screen so everybody that's watching the chat, it's in the box to the left of the screen. That's the Micmac flag. And this is early 1700s.
We got the Moorish flag. We have Micmac hieroglyphic writing. And it's now written using most letters of the Latin alphabet. Come on, man. You can't make this up. As Jay said, it all comes from here. Mm-mm-mm. We just getting started, man. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, y'all should be able to see the flag in the live feed now.
Yes,
That's
in the upper left.
It's just like the one when you find that the Florida flag looks identically the original Florida flag from the 1600s looks like the Confederate flag of later on.
And they stole everything.
Mm-hmm. Oh, make no mistake about it.
Okay, here we go. The Sante Mariomi, or Grand Council, was the traditional senior level of government for the Mi'kmaq people until Canada passed the Indian Act. So Canada passed an Indian Act in 1876 to require First Nations to establish representative elected governments. After implementation of the Indian Act, the Grand Council took on a more spiritual function. The Grand Council was made up of chiefs of 7 distinct councils of Mi'kmaq or Mi'kmaqi. So I'm going to read that again for those of us that missed it because I missed it. And while I was reading it, I still missed it. So I'm going to go back and read it again. The Sante Mariomi, or Grand Council, was the traditional senior level of government for the Mi'kmaq people until Canada passed the Indian Act. So they already had a senior level of government, which we always talk about. They took everything from us, even our form of government. So this Grand Council was the senior level of government. So that meant that there was a junior level of government. And then Canada passed the Indian Act of 1876. So that means basically from 1702, from 1707 until 1876, there was a senior level of government with the Mi'kmaq people alone. That says Canada passed an Indian Act in 1876 to require First Nations to establish representative elected governments after implementation of the Indian Act. The Grand Council took on a more spiritual function. The Grand Council was made up of chiefs of the seven distinct councils of the Mi'kmaq. So basically, and correct me if I'm wrong, and those in the chat, please do so as well. It sounds like they were already starting to set up their so-called embassies.
But guess what? It gets deeper. Check this
Mm-hmm.
out. The
Stop.
Indian
Go ahead.
Act. The Indian Act that you just mentioned of 1876. It says an act respecting Indians, French, les Indies, is a Canadian act of parliament that concerns registered Indians, their bands, and the system of Indian reserves. First passed in 1876 and still enforced with amendments. It is the primary document which defines how the government of Canada interacts with the 614. Let me say this again. The government of Canada interacts with the 614 First Nation bands in Canada and their members. Throughout its long history, the Act has been an ongoing subject of controversy and has been interpreted in different ways by both Aboriginal Canadians and non Aboriginal Canadians. The legislation has been amended many times, including over 20 major changes made by 2002.
Wow.
They knew they had 604. If they could tell you they had 614 nations, 614 First Nations in Canada alone. Mm-mm-mm. Landmines, 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 landmines.
I'm sorry, y'all. I'm um. It said the act is very wide-ranging in scope, covering governance, land use,
Healthcare.
healthcare, education, and more on Indian reserves. Notably, the original Indian Act does two things affecting all indigenous peoples in Canada. It shows how reserves and bands can operate. The Act sets out rules for governing Indian reserves, defines how bands can be created, and spells out the powers of band councils. Bands do not have to do not have to have reserve lands to operate under the Act. It defines who is and who is not recognized as an Indian. The Act defines a number of types of Indian people who are not recognized as registered or status Indians and who are therefore denied membership in bands.
Hmm. Getting to the juicy part. Here goes separation.
The Act's existence is necessitated by the fact the First Nations, historically called Indians, relate differently to the state because of an inherited legal arrangements such as the Royal Proclamation of 1763 and various treaties, and because Canada's constitution specifically assigns Indigenous issues to the federal rather than provincial governments by the terms of Section 9124 of the Constitution Act of 1867. The Act replaced any laws on the topic passed by a local legislature before a province joined Canada Confederation, creating a definitive national policy on the subject. The Act is not a treaty, it is Canada's legal response to the treaties. Nevertheless, its unilateral nature imposed on indigenous peoples to the Canadian government. It contracts to the treaty. It contrasts to the treaties. It is itself a source of discontent among indigenous people in Canada. So this act was passed in 1867. That is 1 year after the Treaty of 1866.
66. Yep. Yes, sir.
Is anybody else seeing what I'm seeing?
I know I'm seeing it.
Which goes
Because
back to
now
what
we
we
got
talked
the Royal
about.
Proclamation real quick. What's it? The Indian
Mm-hmm.
Magna Carta. Okay, it says the Royal Proclamation of 1763 was issued by King George III on October 7th, 1763, following Great Britain's acquisition of French territory in North America after the end of the French and Indian War, the 7 Years' War. This proclamation rendered all land grants given by the government to British subjects who fought for the crown against France worthless. It forbade all settlements west of a line drawn along the Appalachian Mountains, which was delegated as an Indian reserve. Exclusions from the vast region of trans-Appalachian filled people with various colonies with indignation. Discontent would later arise during the American Revolution. The Royal Proclamation continues to be of legal importance to the First Nations in Canada. The 1763 Proclamation line is a similar to the Eastern Continental Divide, path running northwards from Georgia to Pennsylvania, New York border, and northeastwards past the drainage divide of the St. Lawrence Divide from the northwards through the New England. It says background on the Treaty of Paris real quick. The 7 Years' War with the French and Indian War as a North American theater ended with the Treaty of Paris. Under this treaty, France ceded ownership of all of its continental North American east of the Mississippi, including Quebec and the rest of Canada, to Britain. Spain received all French territory west of the Mississippi. Both Spain and Britain received some French islands in the Caribbean. French kept a few small islands used by fishermen, modern day Haiti and the sugar-rich islands of Guadeloupe. Let's freeze for a second. Did you just hear what I just read?
Yeah, man.
That France, I'm going to say this again, France had everything from Florida going all the way up from the east of the Mississippi. And the only way Britain was able to even get the land that you know as the 13 colonies, it was after the war. And Spain got everything that was on the other side.
They were working in concert.
Yeah. Theater, acts. 3 acts working together as one.
Fighting on 3 fronts.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Oh, we know, Jay. We just you know how we do. We bringing it out in real time, posting a link so everybody can see this. To start seeing what really went down.
And
Finna
they
post
weren't fighting each other. They were using the Indians to fight each other while
fight
they were
each other.
watching.
Mm-hmm.
Again, because like I said, they had embassies, so they knew what was going on. They've
Yep.
been using the Indians as pieces, pawns on a chessboard known as Central America and North America.
Yep.
Wow. But as the way the history tells it, you only see it from the
The linear
continental
point.
America side. You don't see it
Yeah.
from the whole North and Central America, which to this
Mm-hmm.
day, if you think about it, the two parts of America that deny that the undrip and A drip has no legal standing today is Canada
Mm-hmm.
and Central America, aka the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And now we know why.
Yep. You know your
They
reason
have to
why.
they have to say that. They have to say that because they've been working in concert
From the
basically since the
beginning.
beginning.
The illusion is to make you believe that they're different. But then we have to remember as well, when you read these people's history, when you read about Spain, France, Britain, England, whatever name you want to call the English at the time, you know the one thing that we got to remember? Aren't they all identified as European?
Yeah, most definitely.
Oh, okay. I'm just making sure. So that's no different than somebody calling me a Floridian, you a Virginian, somebody New Yorkian, but we all are from the same landmass, right?
Yeah.
So no matter what that separate title is, to separate us from the outside world, back on our landmass, we the same people basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm just, the wheels turning. So the only way we know that these people went by different names because that's what they told people. I'm
Yeah.
just saying. I'm just saying.
So where it reads new colonies, did you read that? What talks about new colonies? You
Uh.
read the background. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and hit that part right quick. We're still reading from the Royal
First war.
Proclamation of 1763
Mm-hmm.
in the First War, mind you. Talking
Yeah,
about
in
the
the Queen Anne's War,
and we're only talking about the first. We haven't
war of the
even gotten
18th
past.
century.
Look, we haven't even gotten past the first Confederation in this war.
Nope. Yeah, this
Okay,
is the first Confederation. Wow.
the Proclamation of 1763 dealt with the management of inherited French colonies from the French and Indian War, as well as regulating colonial expansion. It established new governments for four areas: the province of Quebec, the new colonies of West Florida and East Florida, and Grenada. So
Na
let's
na
look
na
at
na.
let's look at what was called the province of Quebec, and then we'll cover East Florida because they don't say tell you what West Florida is. I guess we have to look that
Well, you
up.
got to remember, like Chief No Me in the chat was saying, at one time from Florida, what we know today was Canada. All that was left Florida at one time. Remember, Florida went as far north as possible, and then went as far west as possible. What we know is New Orleans and all that was Florida at one time. Was considered Florida.
Uh, Chief Boyamina says I saw two movies this weekend that showed how those Mormons came into America looking for Zion, where they went to Utah, aka Utah. Why am I not surprised? Okay, province of Quebec from 1763 to 1791. Province of Quebec was a colony in North America created by Great Britain after the Seven Years' War. During the war, Great Britain's forces conquered French Canada. As part of terms of the Treaty of Paris peace settlement, France gave up its claim to Canada and negotiated to keep the small but rich sugar island of Guadeloupe. So look at this. So check this out. As part of the terms of the Treaty of Paris,
Uh-huh.
France gave up its claim to Canada and negotiated to keep the small but rich sugar island of Guadeloupe instead. By
Mm.
Britain's Royal Proclamation of 1763, Canada, part of New France, was renamed the province of Quebec. The new British province extended from the coast of Labrador on the Atlantic Ocean, southwest through the St. Lawrence River Valley to the Great Lakes and beyond to the confluence of the Ohio and Mississippi rivers, portion of the Southwest below the Great Lakes. They were later ceded to the United States in the Treaty of Paris in 1783 and the conclusion of the American Revolution, although the British maintained a military presence there until 1796. In 1791, the territory north of the Great Lakes was divided into Lower Canada and Upper Canada. Wow. Under the proclamation, Quebec included the cities of Quebec and Montreal, as well as zones surrounding them, but did not extend as far west as the Great Lakes or as far north as Rupert's Land. In 1774, the British Parliament passed the Quebec Act that allowed Quebec to restore the use of French customary law in private matters alongside the English common law system and allowing the Catholic Church to collect tithes. The act also enlarged the boundaries of Quebec to include Ohio Country and part of the Illinois Country from the Appalachian Mountains to the east, south of Ohio River, west to the Mississippi River, and north to the southern boundary of lands owned by the Hudson Bay Company or Rupert's Land. Though through Quebec, the British Crown retained access to the Ohio and Illinois countries even after the Treaty of Paris, which was meant to have ceded this land to the United States. By well established trade and military routes across the Great Lakes, the British continued to supply not only their own troops, but a wide alliance of Native American nations through Detroit, Fort Niagara, Fort Michilimackinac, Michilimackinac, and so on until these ports were turned over to the United States following the Jay Treaty. The Jay Treaty. Okay. Quebec retained its seigneurial system. What is that? It's a manorial system of New France was a semi-feudal system of land tenured used in the North American French colonial empire. After the conquest, owing to an influx of loyalist refugees from the American Revolutionary War, the demographics of Quebec came to shift and now included the substantial English-speaking Protestant element from the former 13 colonies. These United Empire loyalists settled mainly in Eastern Township, Montreal, and what was known then as the Pas de Honte High Country west of Ottawa River. The Constitutional Act of 1791 divided the colony into two at the Ottawa River so the western part, Upper Canada, could be under the English legal system, and the English speakers in the majority, the eastern part was named Lower Canada. Okay.
Oh yeah, uh-huh. This is what I'm trying to figure out. So Britain named Quebec and France got it back later on, even though, we're way ahead.
Yep.
Because France ended up getting Canada back later on down the line. Wow.
Yes.
So all they did was just keep trade. Man,
And if you look at
they
these timelines, you'll see how things coincide with some of the laws that were
that's
passed
that's how you
in the
confuse the
United States.
Indians. That's a quick way to confuse the Indians. The French dealing with me right now. Now the French make deals with these people that speak English. I don't understand none of this language. I'm so familiar with the French and the way they do practices and businesses. You get what I'm saying? And the people prior to
Mm-hmm.
that, they were familiar with the Spanish. But all these people are the same people. They speak a common language with each other, and we wasn't speaking a common language with them.
Don't worry,
You got a point, yeah, or were we?
because
Somebody
again,
was. You had Indians
because
helping, yeah, somebody was.
yeah, because the Mi'kmaq, they actually spoke an Algonquin language, and the writings were basically what ended up being Latin.
Mm-hmm.
So there had to be a common language.
Yeah.
And the
Don't worry,
way
we
they're
gonna
shifting lines and trading and basically trading territories, I don't think the war was fought by these countries at all. The war was fought by us.
by the Indians, yeah. You remember what it said earlier? War by proximity. People got to remember what that really means. War by proximity means that the warring nations ain't sending nobody. They got allied nations that's close enough in proximity that they do all the fighting. Iran, Iraq. You know what I'm saying?
Hold up. Free just said something to trigger something. She said sounds like a card game.
Yeah,
3 card Monty.
yeah. They're gonna keep moving it around, keep moving it around. Cause think about it. Depending on what nation mess with these group of Indians, your name changed.
Because it was always based off of what they called us, not what we called ourselves.
Because you notice who you ain't seeing right now. You ain't seeing no Cherokees, are you?
That's because well, no, because we still basically talking about North America.
Mm-hmm. Before they started, well, let me hush. We too far here. I'll wait till we get to the wars. But yeah, like wow.
Grand Rising, Carrie. Grand Rising, original one.
Peace, peace.
Y'all watch. Be careful. Watch your step, because there's a bunch of landmines and craters. We
Because
stepped in it
guess what
today.
else you got to remember? Who's allies at these times? The Muskogee, the Chickasaw, and the Yamasee are allies at this time. Just like the Wabanaki Confederacy, what's that? The Kawanga Mohawk, the Choctaw, what the Timaku, the Apache, and the Natchez. They allies.
Let me go ahead and read the Constitutional Act of 1791. And the reason why I'm reading this is because if you remember, in 1791, in the Americas, they had amended their constitution to add the right to bear arms in their Second Amendment.
Yep. Why was that amended?
So
Why? Why?
so let's see the Constitutional Act of 1791. Let's see what that reads. You can't make this stuff up. Constitutional Act of 1791. From 1896, known as the Clergy Endowments in Canada, Act 1791. The statute passed at Westminster in the 31st year of George III and itemized as Chapter 31 was commonly known as Constitutional Act of 1791. What?
Chapter 31. Hold on. We
It
talking
said from 1896, known as Clergy Endowments Canada, Act 1791. What does that mean? Is this them admitting that they're messing with the dates?
sounds like it to me.
It reads from 1896, known as the Clergy Endowments Canada Act 1791. The statute passed at Westminster in the 31st year of George III and itemized as Chapter 31, 31 GO3 C31 was commonly known as the Constitutional Act 1791. It was an act of Parliament of Great Britain. Okay, so then it gives you history. It says the act reformed the government of the province of Quebec from 1763 to 1791 to accommodate, amongst other loyalists, the 10,000 United Empire loyalists who had arrived from the United States, allowing them following the American Revolution. So you mean to tell me 10,000 United Empire loyalists arrived from the United States after the American Revolution? These were individuals that didn't want anything to do with America after the war because they were loyal to Great Britain. The province of Quebec, with a population of 145,000 French-speaking Canadians, was divided in two when the act took effect on 26 December 1791. The largely unpopulated western half became Upper Canada, now southern Ontario, and the eastern half became Lower Canada, now southern Quebec. The names Upper and Lower Canada were given according to their location along the St. Lawrence River. Upper Canada received English law and institutions, while Lower Canada retained French civil law and institutions, including feudal land tenure and the privileges according to the Roman Catholic Church. Come on, man. Are y'all reading this? Are y'all hearing this? The Legislative Council of Affairs of the province of Quebec, with its subset Executive Council cabinet, was continued and reinforced by the establishment of freeholder elected legislative assemblies. These elected assemblies led to a form of representative government in both colonies. The province of Quebec had not previously had a legislative assembly. So this basically talks about how 10,000 of the loyalists left the United States and went to Canada.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Constitutional Act of 1791. Okay. Well, can everybody hear me? Okay. Jason Squana
One,
says,
two.
"What does clergy mean?" All right, Jay. Let's go look up etymology of clergy.
Dun 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 dun.
Clergy. Clergy. Noun. From 1200. Clergy. Office or dignity of a clergyman. From Old French words clerge. Clerics. Learned men. From medieval Latin clericatus. From late Latin clericus. Clergy. Learning, knowledge, erudition. From clerk. Also from the late Latin clericus. Late Latin meaning persons ordained for religious work, persons consecrated to the duties of public administration in the Christian church is from 1300. Benefit of clergy, 1510s, is the exception of ecclesiastics from a certain criminal process before secular judges. In England, it was first recognized in 1274, modified over time, and abolished in 1827. The ability to
Oh,
read,
before you go
being
further, remember that date,
mhm,
1827. Remember
okay,
the 1827 is when they abolished it, because we're going to come back across that again as we move forward.
okay. The ability to read being originally merely the test of the clergy or clerical position of accused came to length to be in itself the ground of the privilege, so that the phrase became benefit of scholarship. Hmm. The ability to read being originally
Clerical.
merely the test of the clergy or clerical position of the accused came at length to be in itself the ground of the privilege, so the phrase became equal benefit of scholarship.
Can we say record keepers? They were clerks. Clerks of the court. And what's the first court? Is it the first court in their time, the church?
Yep.
Yeah, because
You went on mute.
this how it started, but we know them today as the clerk of courts. That's why I said, y'all remember 1827 now. It's finna get deep. They're nothing but record keepers for the court, which is the church. Remember, at this time, court and church are the same entities, the same building. Because who you have to get judged by?
Clerk, the clergy, the
And,
religious leaders.
and what was the law of the land? What was the law of the land at this time?
You had to be able to read.
Ecclesiastical law?
Oh, okay, I got you.
But
Wow.
they tell you separation of church and state. No, they're the same entity.
Okay. All right. Where we at? Where we at? All right.
Still in the first war. On the top of
Still
the.
on, still on the first Confederacy.
Yeah.
So that was read from the Constitutional Act of 1791. Okay, and this basically talks about how French, France, and Great Britain, which was once England, because now we're talking about after 1707 when England and Scotland merged to become Great Britain. They split up Canada and Florida. Okay, So, is there anything we need? Anything more, man? There's so much here that we can talk about. Okay. Let's see.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
All right. So let's go. Let's go. Let's go back. I think we've pretty much covered the. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
we
make
pulled
sure
out
I'm not
enough from
missing.
this war. Yeah, I think
Dude,
we
we
pulled
didn't even look. We just covered the first. Look, we
the
didn't even.
first
We
two,
just covered the. Dude,
the
we
other
just
side.
covered the first Confederacy. We didn't talk about the other Indians yet.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Remember, because everything started, everything got deeper when we got to the Mi'kmaq. Remember the Mi'kmaqi, they were a nation of a population of 170,000, including 18,044 members in the recently formed Qualipu First Nation in Newfoundland. Okay, remember, 11,000 of them speak Mi'kmaq, an Eastern Algonquin language once written in Mi'kmaq hieroglyphic writing. This
hmm
writing is now using most letters of the Latin alphabet.
oh, Chief on your minion know where 1827 leads you to.
Oh. See, this is how we started. This is how our writings and their writings. This is how
hmm
we were able to write in a common language. Because if you start to look back at some of the Warren Indian tribes, they all spoke a dialect of Algonquin. And correct me if I'm wrong. Cherokee is an Algonquin word because that's not what the Cherokee called
All
themselves.
themselves. Yeah. See, as we do this, you're going to find out who the Cherokee really were. You're going to find out the tribes that really made up the Cherokee before they got renamed. Because you think the Western call it blowing your mind. Wait till we do the history on the Mohawk people, the second group.
And remember, this Mi'kmaq and this Sante Mariomi are the Grand Council, and they started having governments, and the chiefs were broken up into the 7 district councils of the Mi'kmaqi. So, okay, yeah.
I got y'all
So now we're
seatbelt.
starting to dealing with written. We're dealing with written. It sounds like we're dealing with written ecclesiastical law, starting with Latin,
Yep.
coming from Algonquin.
Yep.
So they've been dealing with us for basically almost 1,000 years. If you look at this is a lot deeper than um than it
Well,
appears to
strap,
be.
well, strap in real quick. I'm going to read you 2 paragraphs, just 2 paragraphs. But
Go
yeah,
ahead, I go on mute.
y'all going to need to strap in for this one. The Mohawk people, which is the second, just a brief introduction. The Mohawk people are the most eastern tribe of the Haudenosaunee or Iroquois Confederacy. They are an Iroquois speaking indigenous people of North America, with communities in northern New York State and southeastern Canada, primarily around Lake Ontario, St. Louis, and the St. Lawrence River. As one of the 5 original members of the Iroquois League, the Mohawk are known as the Keepers of the Eastern Door, the traditional guardians of the Iroquois Confederation against invasions from the east. Historically, the Mohawk people were originally based in the valley of the Mohawk River in present day upstate New York, west of the Hudson River. Their territory ranged north to the St. Lawrence River, southern Quebec, and eastern Ontario, south to greater New York, and into Pennsylvania, eastward to the Green Mountains of Vermont, and westward to the border with the Iroquois, which is Wandia Nation's traditional homeland territory. And I'm gonna leave that there. They just wasn't allying with anybody.
They were allied with the Guardians of the Eastern Gate, and I remember James talking about the gates, the Guardians of the Gate, the gatekeepers. I mean, this is deep.
You notice how their territories overlap,
Yeah.
and they were charged as the keepers of the gates, basically meaning translate that they were the security force.
Guardians of the Waterway.
And if you guardians of the waterways, what you need to guard the waters? Last
They
I
need
checked, you ain't
boats.
guarding waters from land.
They need boats, ships, vessels, seafaring vessels.
You notice how you see the so-called religious law and maritime law. You see they forming hand in hand at the same time right now.
Right. They were using us as their military.
Bingo. They still use us for their military. What what nationality of people dominate the U.S. military, y'all?
Hmm.
We have always been the fighting force. Every nation has a particular set that they just excel at. They called us the Titans for a reason. Who
Okay,
do you
so the
think was doing all the
Kashawaga,
fighting?
we were. Again, that's why they never had to call for backup. That's why they never had to call for forces because the way at the rate they reproduce, they didn't need nobody else but us until they didn't need us anymore, which is the reason why they started the Birth Control Act or the
Planned Parenthood, yeah, because we read in 1906 they were afraid with no more of these wars going on this lands, nowhere keeping us fighting at each other, that eventually our numbers would get too much, and when we got back into the system and started voting, they would lose power forever.
wow. Hmm. Let's read about the Caughnawaga. Again, we're still on the first combatants on the French and Spain side. We haven't even got to the English, the Great Britain side. So yeah. Okay.
I'm like, wow. I'm just shaking my head.
That's the Mohawk people. That's not what I wanted. Caughnawaga. Oh, the Caughnawaga
Yeah,
Mohawk people.
they
That's what
are the
you read.
Mohawk.
Okay.
Yeah, they
Okay.
are the Mohawk. But you got to remember what they are. They're the original members of the Iroquois League. See, what people got to realize, the Iroquois Confederacy consists of 5 members. So if you got
These
your
five
pen and
nations.
paper, yeah, 5 different nations, 5 members. So you just heard of one right now. This is one. As we go through time, it's going to point out who they are. So you're going to see who made up this Iroquois Confederation. Matter of fact, TMH, I'm not even
Mm,
gonna keep you even guessing. You see where you see the Wandaya nations
the
right after
Nation.
the article says and westward to the border of the Iroquois. Just scroll over that and tell me what them pictures look like to you.
Hold on. Where you at, bro? Where you at?
On the Mohawk people page. Everybody that's following, post it in the chat real quick.
So are
Again,
you in? Are you in under Mohawk communities?
no, right back at the top.
Okay.
Then once it get to the end of that paragraph, or the second paragraph towards the top, where it say the Great Mountains of Vermont and westward to the border.
Okay. In the westward to the border with the Iroquois Oneida nations. Is that
Oh,
what you
not
want?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm. Oneida are a Native American tribe and First Nations band. They are one of the five founding nations of the Iroquois Confederacy in the area of upstate New York, particularly near the Great Lakes. The Iroquois call themselves Haudenosaunee in reference to their communal living. That's because longhouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, in reference to their communal lifestyle and construction style of their dwellings. Originally, the Oneida inhabited the area that later became central New York, particularly around Oneida Lake in Oneida County. Today, the Oneida have four nationally recognized nations: Oneida Indian Nation in New York, the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, in and around Green Bay, Wisconsin, in the United States, and two in Ontario, Canada. Oneida at Six Nations of the Grand River and Oneida Nation of the Thames in South World. And if you look at their flag, wow. I'm sorry, y'all. This is
Straight up and down.
come on, man.
I'm pasting that one out in the chat too as well. So now that's number two. That's the second nation, right?
Hmm. So let's go to the Timucua. No, Choctaw.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, fasten your seatbelts. We need a 5 point harness for this. Okay, so the Choctaw, in Choctaw language, Chata, are a Native American people originally occupying what is now the southeastern United States, modern day Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, and Louisiana. The Choctaw language belonged to the Muskogee language family group, Hopewell and Mississippian cultures who lived throughout the east of the Mississippi River Valley and its tributaries about 1,700 years ago. The Hopewell people built um, Naniwea, a great earthwork mound located in what is central present-day Mississippi. It is still considered sacred by the Choctaw. The early Spanish explorers of the mid-16th century in the southeastern encountered Mississippian cultures. Remember they talked about that in 1540? Culture villages and chiefs. The anthropologist John R. Swanton
Mm-hmm.
suggested that the Choctaw derived their name from the early leader Henry Albert, and historians suggest that their name is derived from the Choctaw phrase Hachahatak, river people. The Choctaw coalesced as a people in the 17th century and developed three distinct political and geographical divisions: Eastern, Western, and Southern. These different groups sometimes created distinct independent alliances, with nearby European powers. These these included the French, based in the Gulf Coast, and in Louisiana, the English of the Southeast, and the Spanish of Florida and Louisiana. During the colonial era, during the American Revolution, most Choctaw supported the 13 colonies bid for independence from the British Crown. It says they never went to war against the United States, but they were forcibly relocated in 1831 and 1833 as part of the Indian Removal Act in order for the U.S. to take over their land for development of European Americans. In the 19th century, the Choctaw were classified by Europeans as one of the five civilized tribes because they adopted numerous practices of their United States neighbors. The Choctaw and the United States agreed to 9 treaties. By the last three, the U.S. gained vast land cessions. They removed most Choctaw west of the Mississippi River to Indian Territory, sending them on a forced migration far from their homeland. The Choctaw were the first Native American tribe forced to relocate under the Removal Act. The Choctaw were exiled from their land because the U.S. desired its resources and to sell it for settlement and agricultural development. There we go with those universities by European Americans. Some U.S. leaders believed that by reducing conflict between the peoples, they were saving the Choctaw from extinction. Boo. The Choctaw negotiated the largest area and most desirable lands in Indian Territory. Their early government had three districts, each of its own chief, who, together with the two chiefs, sat on the National Council. They appointed Choctaw delegates to represent them to the United States government in Washington, D.C. So here it basically says that the Choctaw were the first tribe to be forcibly removed under the Indian Removal Act. So let's
But
revisit
before
the
you
Indian
go
Removal
deeper,
Act.
before you
Mm-hmm.
go there first, remember who are the Choctaw really? In the beginning, who did they stem from? Who are their people? The article was stating in the beginning
Hold on.
belongs to the no, what's that? Muskegon language family.
Yeah, Muskegon language family.
So
Yeah.
Mosco, and you still have a band here, the Creek, Muskogee, right? Okay. I'm just making, jotting notes down while we go to come back to once you got finished.
Oh man. Okay, so where was I at?
Oh, you was reading on,
The Indian Removal Act.
yes.
Because they're saying, according to this, it says they were the Choctaw were the first Native American tribe forced to relocate under the Indian Removal Act. So let's look at this. This tribe, so think about it, they said this tribe helped in the American Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
They
Supported the
urged and
13
encouraged, you're
colonies.
right, they supported and urged. They never fought against the United States. They never, that's the reason, remember they said if you never raise arms against the United States,
You will be given, yeah.
land west.
Mm-hmm.
The Indian Removal Act was signed into law on May 28, 1830 by U.S. President Andrew Jackson. The law authorized the president to negotiate with southern Native American tribes for their removal to federal territory west of the Mississippi in exchange for white settlement of their ancestral lands. This is when they started moving out west.
Mm-hmm.
The act has been referred to as a unitary act of systematic genocide because it completely discriminated against any ethnic group to the point of certain death of vast numbers of its population. The act was signed by Jackson and was strongly enforced under his administration, and that the Martin Van Buren, which extended until 1841. The act was strongly supported by southern and northeastern populations, with much resistance, however, from the native tribes, the Whig Party. The Cherokee worked together to stop the relocation, but were unsuccessful. This is the first time we're hearing about the Cherokee.
Mm-hmm.
They were eventually forcibly removed by the United States government in a march to the west that later became known as the Trail of Tears.
But you know what's important back in the Choctaw article? This paragraph right here. By 1831, Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek, those Choctaw who chose to stay in the newly formed state of Mississippi were to be considered state and U.S. citizens. They
Yeah.
were one of the first major non-European ethnic groups to be granted citizenship. Article 14 in the 1830 treaty with the Choctaw stated, Choctaws may wish to become citizens of the United States under the 14th article of the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit on all of the combined lands, which were consolidated under Article 1 from all previous treaties between the United States and the Choctaw. So basically, they telling you in 1831, all Choctaw who did not leave and go out west were automatically transferred over to citizens because the Choctaw signed the deal and got
To
some of the
move.
best lands out west.
The oil land,
They got
Oklahoma,
the
that was
oil
that's floating
land.
on the they were floating on the sea of oil.
Mm-hmm. Because it states in there that they negotiated the best lands.
So what
The
does that mean for the
Choctaw
ones who
negotiated.
stayed for real? For real?
Yeah, right here it says the Choctaw negotiated the largest area and most desirable lands in Indian Territory. Their earlier government, that's what you read, had three districts, each with its own chief, who together with town chiefs sat on the national council. They appointed a Choctaw delegate to represent them in the U.S. government in Washington, D.C. They had government representation sitting in D.C. before anybody else because, hey, I hate to say it, they cut the deal first. Now there might be somebody else on the in history we coming across, but the first people that we see that cut this major land deal. And it states by 1831 Treaty of Dancing Rabbit, those Choctaw who chose to stay in a newly formed state of Mississippi were to be considered state and U.S. citizens. They were one of the first major non-European ethnic groups to be granted citizenship.
That's
So this is
Wilkinson
before
County.
the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, and this is
Yes.
also before civil rights, 14th
See,
Amendment.
if you're filling in the blanks, all the Emancipation Proclamation did was the ones that didn't sell land, that didn't cut deals, that was just stubborn, that didn't want to go, the Emancipation came and got them. The individual Indians who built wealth up over time. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That's the Emancipation Proclamation. It came to knock them off.
So what does that mean for the ones who stayed?
They were no longer considered Indian. They were citizens.
They
You
were
go from being a
United
first
States
class
citizens.
citizen, you become a second class citizen.
Now what does that mean for their descendants?
So what does that mean for what?
For their descendants, the descendants of citizens now.
That's exactly what that means. They're citizens. They're citizens by birth. They're
Mm-hmm.
native citizens.
It's showing you what they did.
So the Choctaw were the ones that was encouraging the Revolutionary War
Mm-hmm. Because they were
and the rebel.
promised.
Right.
Because they were promised what Indian state, a state under Indian control for their support. They were the first in line trying to cut another deal. Hey, because ain't this a time of the American Civil War, 1831 and all this?
The American Civil War happened. Remember, the Civil War happened from 1861 to
Mm-hmm.
1865. The Indian
Mm-hmm.
Removal Act happened before then. So they were the first tribe to be moved out
1831,
west.
yeah. Yeah.
Right. So that
Started
was
it.
called
Yep.
the Trail of Tears. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that was because they left. They agreed to leave to get that land.
Yep.
And I guess they thought that because they had always been on the side of the Americas, that they was gonna be cool. Well, they would have stayed cool had they never discovered oil.
Mm-hmm.
It put it this way, it would have staved off them getting that land taken.
Yeah.
Because after oil was discovered in what was it? 1840, was it 1840 something?
Hmm. Oh, it even gets deeper. After the Civil War, the Mississippi, Alabama, and Louisiana Choctaw fell into obscurity for some time. The Choctaw, Oklahoma, no longer considered the Mississippi Choctaw part of the Choctaw Nation. However, Jack Amos legally challenged the Choctaw Nation stance at the turn of the 20th century. Those are the cases we started hearing about.
Mm-hmm. This is crazy. You can't make this stuff up.
Because what happened? They went out there around this time. We talked about this too. They were finding oil at this time. So the ones that went out there started cutting off the ones that stayed. What do we say a lot of times? Sometimes the real fight starts with you.
Mm-hmm.
Our first fight is with ourselves, with our own people. That's our first fight.
Again,
Just think about it.
accept the responsibility and stop blaming
People
people when we were the ones to blame.
that we're seeing right now that deals were being cut, and we know that the Choctaw that went out west, they got the best land. We also know about the mineral rights.
Mm-hmm.
So they had oil. They hit it big. They were like, you know what? Yeah, we left our brothers and sisters and stuff back over there, but we ain't finna worry about them. We got this. It states here in 1978, the United States Supreme Court, the United Supreme Court of the United States held that all remnants of the Choctaw Nation are entitled to all rights of the federally recognized nation. The American Indian Policy Review Commission filing report 1, Chapter 11, page 4, 468 on May 19th, 1977. Federally acknowledged slash recognized the existence of Choctaw communities of Mobile and Washington counties, which are along the Tuskegee, Topeka, and Mobile rivers, where Choctaw treaties were negotiated in various Choctaw treaties. So basically, they had the case proven that they were still Choctaw. The Choctaw had to basically they had to take their own people to court. Basically, what's going on there?
And then it says the Choctaw in Oklahoma struggled to build a nation. They transformed the Choctaw Academy there and opened an academy for girls in 1840s. Here we go with academies and
Wow,
schools. The aftermath of the Dawes Act in late
wow,
19th century, the U.S. dissolved tribal governments in order to extinguish Indian land claims and admit the Indian and Oklahoma territories as a state in 1907 from the period of U.S. appointed chiefs of the Choctaw and other tribes in the former Indian Territory. Because remember, before that, in 1905, the five nations or the five civilized tribes wanted to create a state known as what was it?
it was supposed to be an Indian state.
Yeah, they wanted to create their own Indian state. I forgot what they wanted to call it. It come to me. But they got turned down in 1905, and they turned it into a state of Oklahoma in 1907.
Hmm.
And from that period, the U.S. appointed chiefs of the Choctaw and other tribes in the former Indian Territory. So check this
Hold
out:
on,
that the U.S. appointed chiefs of the Choctaw and other tribes in the former territory.
man. Listen, you couldn't script this no better for a movie. It's and what happened in 1906? Do we remember what happened in
What happened?
1906? They went in
What
Congress
happened?
in 1906 and complained that it was
Oh
too
yeah,
many of us.
right,
So they had to start removing us because when it came down to vote, they would lose and they would never be able to keep power.
right.
This is part of that deal. Okay, so we're gonna take away voting from here on out. The U.S. government will appoint the chiefs. Now you see how you got some of these people in places.
And again, it goes back to us. We did this to ourselves.
and it bit us in the end. We turned around and we tried to play our own people, and we got played. What you said, 3 card Monty?
Hmm. We can get mad all we want to, but the people we need to be getting mad at is ourselves. We need to get mad at our tribes. And I understand people don't want to hear, but if you don't want to hear this, this is not the show to be listening to. If you don't want to hear the truth, go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But this is the truth. We did this to ourselves. Read
Facts.
read the history. We did this to ourselves. And if you're not man nor woman enough to admit that, then we're going to continue to repeat this cycle. And it doesn't matter how many declarations or many claims we make, it's not going to get right until we man up and woman enough and realize that we did this. Ain't nobody do this to us. Like I said again,
We did
we're
it.
quick to bang on our chest
Yep.
about how we the greatest in all this. We the fastest. We the best. We the strongest. When it comes to the best, we want to bang our chest. But when it comes to being the worst, oh, the devil made me do it. Somebody else did. Oh, now that we won't take responsibility. First rule of leadership is you take responsibility for everything that happens in your
Yep.
territory. If this is our
Facts.
land, we have to be man and woman enough to take responsibility. If you ain't man enough and woman enough to take responsibility, you will still be on a reservation.
Mm-hmm. Facts.
I don't care what you say. If you're not man enough and woman enough to take responsibility for what happened, you're going to stay on a reservation.
That's
So you
it.
can continue to blame people all you want to, but until you are man enough and woman enough to take responsibility for what our ancestors did, you will stay on the reservation.
Facts.
Man, I don't mind if you say that every day.
It's the truth.
Come
And
on now.
this is the thing is that by going, that's why we say it's important to do your genealogy. You understand? It's that yes, history is good. But if you realize you don't have to go that far back to find out what happened.
No
Why do
man.
you think now I'm finna ask my relatives this? Why do you think a lot of our people who get up there who do come into this knowledge don't really say anything or put it out there? Because are we as a people ready to face the hardcore truth
I
that
don't
we
think
are
so.
the monsters, that we were the monsters, the terrorizers of our own people,
We
that
the
some
first.
of
If we
us
were the
cut
first in all the
deals?
good, right? If we were the first in all the good, guess what? We were the first in all the bad. If you don't want to accept that, go on somewhere. Go to Canada. I don't care where you go. Go somewhere.
And I'm posting an article on the Choctaws, on Choctaw again, because there's a lot more, and everyone we come across, it's the whole timeline to where some of them it tells you the names of the chiefs and stuff. And we're gonna do this every day to show you that this timeline is more than just linear. That if you start writing these dates down, that you're gonna realize that a lot of these wars were going on simultaneously, so you can start seeing what was really going on.
You got to realize the United States, France, Canada, they already had embassies established in the United States territories. The reason why it's so important to know this is because if you really want to claim that you know history, you really want to claim you know all the law. Don't just know part of it. Don't just be spitting a portion and not reading everything. See, that's our biggest problem. We keep claiming that we under the spell. Since you want to blame somebody,
Hmm.
let's get to the real blame, not reading all the laws. Let's get to the real situation here. Since we want to be bad, since we want to stop making all these claims, we
No.
bad, right? We the
Clinging on to one
originators, right?
thing. Clinging on to what benefits you.
We the originators, right? We so bad, we so bold, we gonna do this, that, and the third. I promise you this. You are not going to form any military that's going to beat
Yeah,
the military we got.
and
I
that's
was
what
in
it
I was in the military.
is.
You name me one tribe, one clan that's got more guns than the United States Army. I'll wait. You so big and you so bad, you gonna do all these things, you gonna make all these claims. When they come knocking on your door at 4 o'clock in the morning because they considered you a terrorist and you don't have any rights, who
And
gonna
I'm gonna
get
say
you?
it like this:
Would they
we
not?
done said millions and millions of times.
Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, if they knock,
I can
loud
hear
and
you.
clear,
Yep.
But here's the thing.
loud and
Again,
clear.
this is the thing that always gets me. We always want to claim about how big and bad we are, how we were the first. But when it comes to us doing bad, it's somebody else's fault. Where's the
Mm-hmm.
responsibility in all that?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we not taking responsibility? I don't see no amens now. I don't see no hands going up. I don't see no fist pumps. I don't see no muscles. I don't see no emojis now. When I start talking about
Yeah.
responsibility, everybody get quiet. Come on, man.
And to touch on what TMA's saying, you always hear it. Oh, everybody know what the secret is. We don't know what the secret is. No, the secret is we did it to ourselves. You screwed yourself over and you waiting for somebody else to come fix it. Let's do not remember. Well, let's not forget. They came in the 1500s setting up shops and embassies already since 1540. They were already setting deals up in areas already with our ancestors. You see in real time, one side was like, well, forget them over there. We got this. We good. We ain't even people no more. Yeah, just go ahead and make all them citizens. Y'all can have all them. We straight. That's basically what's happening. Your own people giving you up is putting you in slavery. Because in Mississippi, this is the funny part. That if you look at it, ain't the Mississippi, Alabama area known as the worst parts of slavery?
Mm-hmm. That's what I heard.
That them ancestors in that area had it the worst? Who put them ancestors in that area in them situations again?
We did.
Let that set in. They own people hung them out to dry. See, now I get it now. When we read last week that some of them escorted some of them out there and came back, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they gave them a year to come back. But they screwed them over because they turned the census in 4 months early.
Hmm.
They set their own people up. It's telling you that they negotiated for the best land. They were the first at the table negotiating for the best land. We also read last week about the mineral rights. Ain't they the nation that started having the first oil wells out there?
Mm-hmm. They formed the first corporation.
First
The
oil
Cherokee.
corporation,
Yep.
Cherokees and them.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. I'm gonna say again, who did it again?
We did.
And I'm like you. It's funny when people pointing the finger, rah rah rah. We can get ready to go and gear it up. Hell, but now you find out the culprit's you.
Now all of a sudden you hear crickets. Don't run now. Don't run now.
Please don't. We've been trying to warn you. We've been trying to warn you. We tell you every rising, put that seatbelt on. Come with a hard hat, shovels. We got C4 and dynamite blowing them large holes in the story.
As powerful as the people as we are, you don't get taken out by people that are not as powerful as you. You have to have help. Same thing that's happening now was the same thing that was happening then.
We turned on. See, and think about it, this is just one tribe we're dealing with. And if you look at the other tribes and what we know already, how other tribes got together, two tribes would get together to eliminate another tribe.
You know what this
So now
reminds me
let's
of?
put this in
Hold on.
real time.
Check this out. You know what this
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of? When when,
Go
you, when,
ahead.
talk, when we talk about the whole idiocy of it. You know the TV show, I don't even know if it comes on anymore. What is it called?
Mm-hmm.
Survivor. The TV show Survivor. Can you hear me, Bones?
I hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the
Uh-huh.
TV show Survivor, you have these contestants. They all are trying to win, right? And they know the
Yeah, I hear
rules
you.
of the games. You're gonna do whatever it takes to win. So you're forming these alliances, hoping that you be the last one standing at the end. There's only gonna be one standing, but you're gonna form these alliances. You're gonna do whatever you gotta do to be the last one standing at the end. That's what it sounds like these tribes are trying to do.
Hmm.
I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. I could be wrong, but that's what it looks like to me. You know you was dealing with somebody that was conniving. You know you was dealing with
Mm-hmm.
somebody that was evil, and yet you still decided to deal with it because you wanted to be in control. You wanted to be the most powerful.
Yeah, Golden Moon. I see what you're saying. Aren't the Cherokee contaminated? But you have to realize that
All of us
happened to us.
contaminated.
Yeah, that happened because we did it. We split our people in half to get some of us. You know what I'm saying? We don't know what. Put it like this: when it came down to the tribes, some members of the tribes got together and said, "Listen, we want this, this, and this. In return, we'll give you this, this, and this." They were selling their own people out.
That's why you had certain Algonquin tribes fighting. I mean, certain tribes that were speaking Algonquin fighting other tribes. Basically, what it boils down to is you actually had families that was broken up into three groups: a group that fought with the French, a group that fought with the Spanish, and a group that fought with the English, which ended up being Great Britain.
Hmm.
Families. So when they talk about the Civil War, they talk about us, brother fighting against brother. Except this Civil War has been going on since the early 1300s, looks like.
Yeah, the Civil War they talking about is us killing each other, and you wonder why what they're really laughing at, because the joke is us now. You probably People probably don't want to hear it. People probably back up off the channel for that, but we not here to sugarcoat anything.
And Capital 20 said something that's important. He says, all of us didn't sell out, just like all of us didn't sell out today. Yeah, but at the end of the day, Capital, there was enough of us that sold out to make it seem like all of us sold out. Again, there's always going to be a remnant. There's always going to be a small amount. But at the end of the day, we got to be honest with ourselves. Everything micro macro. Let's look at YouTube today.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the communities that exist. You got basically the majority doing the same thing. No one's really talking about finding your tribe. No one's talking about time. Very few will talk about time to the land.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm gonna just leave that part right there. But but the majority are talking about blaming the government. Who
Yeah.
started these governments? If we're gonna really be honest, if we're gonna be man enough and woman enough to take responsibility, where did they get this from?
Who started it?
Where did a nonprofit or not for profit or ecclesiastical system come from? It came from us. But all of a sudden, since it's a system that's used against us and we don't know how to use it, oh, that's their system. So now
Yeah.
all of a sudden, we don't want to take advantage. We don't want to take responsibility for something that we let somebody have. Now it's no longer ours. So we're
We
gonna blame
just
somebody
read that
else.
the laws that what was their name again? The me oh I forgot their name. Don't want to misquote it. Where my notes
The
at?
Micmac
The
or the
Micmac.
Micmac coup.
That
Yeah.
the Micmac cool that their language was the predecessor to Latin. That their hieroglyphs is the predecessor. That these sat down with the Europeans and they constructed law. So if that's what we're reading and we're saying that these are our people, whether it's your tribe or not, it's going to come back to some people tribe. But as we're seeing, members of all tribes have been doing this. So it comes back to what we're saying again, accountability. Let's stop this with pointing the finger saying, oh, well, it was that part or that part or that part. No, we have to take accountability. Now that we know what happened, now that you're learning what happened, You break the cycle by taking accountability of, okay, we're in this situation because we put ourselves here. Let's stop blaming the government. Let's stop blaming this. Let's stop blaming that. Now let's come down. Let's get to the table and start. Because the problem is we still have not addressed the issues that we did this. Even now, there's people in their head in conversations still debating on, well, yeah, that side probably did it, or that side probably did it. But let me let all you know something. Have all you did your genealogy all the way back to this timeline? Have all you traced your tribes back to the 1500s to know if your tribes are one of these tribes that cut deals? Because what it's telling me is, if you was Choctaw and you was in Oklahoma, that means everybody that went to Oklahoma was part of selling out the ones that was left in Alabama and Mississippi. Let's get 100 and let's get real. We either gonna do this for 7 generations, or you wasting time talking. It doesn't matter how many were part of the sellout. The point that what matters is our own did it to us. And for a small group to be able, for a small group of Choctaw to be able to con the larger amount, somebody would sleep at the damn wheel. Excuse my language. I mean, if we gonna be 100 about this, we face this. Because we're still in the beginning. We didn't get to the part to where tribes were accepting money to kill off other tribes yet. We didn't even get to them wars yet.
And again, I hear you, and I'm not disagreeing with what's being said as far as we had to do what we had to do. But at the end of the day, if we would have all come together, none of this would have happened. That's the part that we're not admitting. If we would have come together, none of this would have happened. Let that sink in. If we would have, because think of how many tribes in Canada alone. There was over how many tribes?
614.
614 tribes.
And an original one said, "Sonny, we got to think. What did these people have to trade with us, the American Indian, in our homeland to make us sell each other out? Think about it. You in my home. You can't give me nothing in my home. Because it's my home. How you going to pick a seashell off my living room floor and give it to me? We going to be this retarded?"
So instead of assigning blame, how about we do this? How about everybody find out who their tribe is?
Mm-hmm.
Tie back to the land.
Yes, sir.
Find out who your tribe is. Tie back to the lands. Help your tribe have a better constitution, have better bylaws,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can work on getting your land back.
Y'all heard that? Ding! Right on time.
Because I'm going to tell you like this, and no one still hasn't presented me with this. If you form your own tribe and then don't tie back to your family who has land rights, you put it into a trust, a land trust. You form your tribe, put this tribe on this land. Then somebody else discover who ties back into their land that the land that you own that is now in a trust belongs to that family. They got a copy of the land grant. It's proven to be stolen land that you purchased from a real estate company. Whose land is it? I'll wait. Because I'm going to tell you like this. Let me find out that my ancestors got some land and you decided to put together some a land trust and my ancestors own that land. I'm gonna leave that
See,
like that. I'm gonna leave that like that.
and I'm gonna take it like this. I don't care, and we shouldn't care. Cause see, it coming down to this again, relatives. Taking accountability and being the grown-ups in the room right now is that I don't care if they came here with bang sticks, fire, rocks, whatever you want, whatever excuse you want to say, it's still a choice. And I can't speak for nobody else. But you know what my heart and mind tells me, what pumps through me? Death is better than oppression to me. I'm speaking for self here. To me, death is better than oppression. So if I cut a deal, ain't that still a choice? Regardless of the outcome, isn't it still a choice? That if something is wrong and it ain't right, and to do the right thing, man, you might have to lose your life and you don't do the right thing. Let's think of what we're doing here. See, we can't sit here, be all high and mighty. We're the first. The world was melanated. We're the chosen people, his people, children of the sun. When we all know that he made a covenant with the children of the sun. When we all know the children of the sun broke the covenant. Y'all want to go there? Let's go there. I'm born for this. Stay ready. So how we gonna duck our tails and still try to make lame excuses now? When it's facing you that we are the ones that turned our back on our creator. That the reason we're in this situation because we did the injustice, the envy, the jealousy, the first sin. We did it. If we're the first people, who committed the first sin? Who? Like I said, are we here to get it right this time? Are we going to do what Priors did? Sit in the room and still trying to find excuses. The road to salvation is meant to be hard because only those who are worthy will make it. And it's not meant for everybody. So pretenders, leave. If the load is too much, leave. If the hole is too deep, leave. Only the real need to apply now because we're undigging the truth. And the truth need nothing else to stand on but itself. So it's time for the real Indians to stand up. The children of God to stand up. Are we going to do the same thing we've been doing? Creating false idols, giving power to something else, making it greater than ourselves. Now what we going to do?
It's very fixable. We can fix this. We can atone for the sins of our fathers and mothers, our ancestors. We can. It all starts by doing your genealogy, finding out who your people are, and helping them. That's the biggest start right there. You find your tribe, we'll help your tribe. You got my word on that. If you find your tribe, not if, when you find your tribe, we'll help your tribe. And if you think I'm lying, try me. Find your tribe and then try me.
That's all we saying, relatives. I love all my relatives. I put it on the line every day. The ones I know and the ones I don't know. The ones I will know and the ones I may never ever get to know. That's why I say we have to face yourself in the mirror. You got to be willing to deal with the hard reality that somebody in your family line 200 years ago could have been on the side that screwed over the other side.
I know mine was.
So what was done was done. That ink is dry. So when are we just going to accept the wrongs that was done and start fixing it and moving forward? Going back to loving each other, but loving thyself first. Because through loving thyself, by default, we will love each other. Because my brother is me. My sister is me. We love everything else and everybody else but ourselves. Sickening. That even that we stand now, that we have to admit that we still suffer from colonized brains, colonized minds. Because when the truth is facing us face to face, we're clawing and biting tooth and nail to hold on to the lie. It's either we're going to get it right or we damn the next generation to do it. Our sins will be passed down if we don't sit here and try to correct it. And I don't know how this going to end. But I know in my story said and done, I'm going to be on the side that did it, that tried, that gave the attempt. I know what I'm here for. Find yourself, people. Find yourself.
If you do your genealogy and you find your tribe, we'll help you help your tribe. If you need help with your genealogy, there are 50 sites on the Conscious Assembly website that will help. If you need help, reach out. There's a lot of people in the chat. There's a lot of people in the community that know how to do it. If you're really serious about getting this right, and you're not about lip service, put this one on me. I said it. If you find your tribe, I'll help you help your tribe. I'll say it again. If you find your tribe, I will help you help your tribe. If you think I'm playing, try me. See what happens.
That's what we here for. This is not here to be just a YouTube show, a rallying cry, views, personal feelings and fame. No. We do this to encourage people to help people find their tribes. Because we're here putting in place infrastructure and the means to help our tribes become self-sufficient. We're not at this every day just to be at this every day. And I stand right beside TMH. Find your tribe, and we're going to help you help your tribe. And if you don't think that's what we're doing, find your tribe and test us.
Sellout, you got anything you want to say, bro? You've been quiet as usual, being this
Mm-hmm.
strong silent type.
Man, I just enjoy listening to y'all go off at the end of y'all's at the end of everything. But yeah, no, I mean, like he said, test us for real. Find your tribe, tie into the land the right way. You know, I believe there's only one way. It's the way that they got us out. So reverse engineer it.
I will say it again. Find your tribe, and we're here to help you help your tribe. We ain't coming with our hands out. We coming bringing,
Facts.
coming delivering. We're coming with the message of self-sufficient. You don't have
That's
to
fact.
give us nan dime. We don't ask you for nan dime. We just ask you to take the time to research yourself. I don't care if you Muslim, Christian, or Jew. I don't care if you want to claim yourself to be an atheist. It doesn't matter to me. Because if you're an American Indian, you're still an American Indian, and you need to take the time out to find out who you are. First things first. All other things will follow. So on that note, we got any closing remarks?
AAU.world, autochthonousassembly.com. Log on to the websites. Autochthonousassembly@gmail.com is the email address. I'm putting all that in the chat right now.
The help that you are looking for is literally at the end of your own arm. And what does that look like? Do your genealogy. And I don't mean by getting a DNA test, I mean your family tree. Let people in your community know that you're Indian. Help them find out if they're Indian. Well, hell, help them find out if what tribe they belong to, whether it's an African tribe or whether it's an Indian tribe. And what you'll find is the more you help people, the more help you'll get. The easier it will be for you to find your tribe. And then once you find your tribe, let us know, and we'll show you how to help your tribe to become self-sustaining and self-sufficient. I relinquish the mic.
Anything for you, no sellout? Anything else? That's it.
Yeah, I'm just posting in the chat.
All right. And like we said again, I back up everything that was said prior. Genealogy, genealogy, genealogy. And when you get to the end of that road, don't be afraid of whatever you might find. Just dust yourself off and know that there are groups of American Indians here waiting on you to find yourself. And we're going to show you what's the next move after you find your tribe and put you in a direction to help you become self-sufficient. So on that note, it's been another great, great, great Grand Rising show, how it always is with the relatives. Until we see you tomorrow rising, peace.
Peace, y'all.